Generations of Americans have applauded the honesty of George Washington as a boy when he confessed to his father that he had chopped down a prize cherry tree. His courage before prospective punishment has become a classic example of courageous honesty in a small thing. True, historical fact has since tended to cast doubts on the strict reliability of this story. But no doubt has yet been cast on the courage required to stand up for something we have done, especially when it was an error. The little white lie gets to require a host of bigger lies to cover it up. Debbie Summers finds just such a problem confronting her.
Are you almost finished with your homework, Dave? It's getting pretty late.
It sure is. Debbie went to bed a couple hours ago.
Oh, about 10 more minutes and I ought to be finished, Dad.
Well, Debbie went to bed awfully early tonight, Fran. Is she sick or something?
I hope not. But did you notice she hardly ate any supper?
Yeah, and she was so quiet. I forgot she was even at the table. And that isn't like Debbie.
Well, maybe it just wasn't her day. Well, there she is. Hello, honey. We were just talking about you. Is something wrong? We thought you were asleep.
Oh, the most awful thing happened today, and I've tried not to think about it, but it keeps coming back into my mind, and I just don't know what to do.
Debbie, dear, what happened? Here, sit down.
You want to talk to Mom and Dad alone, Deb? I can study in my room.
No, that's okay, Dave. You might as well know about it, too.
Well, it can't be as bad as all that, baby. Here's my handkerchief. Now, what's all this about?
Oh, I don't even want to think about it. I feel so terrible. Oh, well, our class had a special assembly today about conservation. And the principal, Mr. Sowers, showed us a model some of the students had made for him. It was a forest scene with trees and water and animals made out of wood and that other stuff. What do you call it?
That's paper mache. He showed us the same model when I was in your class, Deb. It's supposed to show how beautiful the forest is when people are careful not to destroy things.
That's the one, Dave. Well, after his speech, Mr. Sowers said we could all go over and look at it, so a lot of us did. I was last, and most of the kids had gone, and oh, it was so pretty. One little deer looked so real. I just picked it up to see what it was made of, and this is the awful part. I dropped it.
Oh, did it break, Debbie?
Yes. The head broke right off and one back foot. I didn't mean to do it. It was an accident.
Of course, dear.
Well, did you tell that to Mr. Sowers?
Well, Daddy, I was going to, but he was talking to another teacher, and just then the bell rang, and I was going to be late for class.
Well, what did you do, Deb?
Oh, I just put the pieces back on the model, and I ran to class.
Oh, Debbie, you didn't tell anyone? Not even your teacher?
Well, I was going to go to Mr. Sowers' office after school and tell him what I'd done, but all afternoon I kept thinking of how Mr. Sowers is the principal and how I don't even know him, and he always looks so stern. And after school I was afraid to go. And then on the way home I got to thinking that no one saw me break it. Maybe they'll just get it fixed and never have to know who did it. So I decided not to tell anyone and just forget about it.
Well, then why are you telling us, Debbie?
Oh, because I can't forget about it. I know it was wrong not to say anything, but now I'm afraid to. Oh, I don't know what to do.
Well, Debbie, I'm glad you came to us with this problem, and I'm glad you feel so badly about it.
Why? I sure wish I didn't feel so awful.
Well, it tells me that you have a good conscience, because it bothers you. And it should, baby, because you've made a mistake.
Oh, Daddy, what should I do?
Well, I'm going to let you decide that for yourself. Now, first of all, you said this afternoon you decided not to tell anyone that you broke the deer, right?
Yes.
Well, first you'd better analyze the consequences of not saying anything.
What do you mean, Daddy?
Well, is this model going to be used again?
Yes, I think so.
Sure. Mr. Sowers uses it every year when he talks to the school about conservation.
Okay, now, whose responsibility is it to put the model away? Do the students do that?
No, I'm sure Mr. Sowers took it back to his office himself.
So, do you think he'd be the first one to discover that the deer was broken?
I guess so. It'd be pretty hard to miss. I put the pieces right on top.
Okay, now what do you suppose Mr. Sowers is going to think? Now, he'll know that someone in your class must have done it because he knows he didn't. Now, can you think of anyone he might suspect?
What do you mean?
Well, honey, when I was in school, it seems there was always someone in the class who got into trouble more than anyone else.
Well, there is one boy in our class, Lance Booth. Oh, he's always in the principal's office for something. Oh, Oh, no. Oh, I'll bet they think he did it.
Probably. So if you just keep silent, Debbie, you've got more than just yourself to worry about. Someone else may get into trouble.
Oh, my, I never thought about that.
Well, what Dad says is true, Deb. It reminds me of what happened when I was in the 5th grade. Ronnie Graham, a boy in our class, found a quarter that had rolled off the teacher's desk and onto the floor. Well, he figured someone had lost it, so he picked it up and kept it. When the teacher couldn't find it, she asked the class if anyone had it.
Well, did Ronnie give it back?
Well, he was afraid to say anything about it, because it might look like he had stolen it. So he just kept quiet, hoping nothing more would be said.
Well, what happened, Dave?
Well, the teacher got mad because, well, she knew one of the students had taken it. So she called the principal in. And by this time, Ronnie was really afraid to say anything. So the principal said the whole class would have to stay after school until the person who had taken it came forward.
I remember that now, too, Dave. You were late getting home from school almost a whole week.
Yes, and finally, after about 3 days of staying late, Ronnie confessed. But by that time, why, the whole class was mad at him because he'd made us all suffer.
Oh, poor Ronnie.
Well, it would have been hard for him to admit it at first, Deb, but it only got worse the longer he put it off.
Well, you know there's a Bible principle involved here. Get me the Bible, Dave.
Sure.
Thank you. Now, Jesus was the greatest teacher of all, and he knew how people think and how easy it is for us to put things off, even when it comes to settling an argument. So why don't you read what he said at Matthew chapter 5, verse 25. Here, Debbie.
Okay, Daddy. Let's see, it says, "Be about settling matters quickly with the one complaining against you at law, while you are with him on the way there, that somehow the complainant may not turn you over to the judge, and the judge to the court attendant, and you get thrown into prison."
All right, now let's apply the principle here. If a matter comes up that we have to settle, what word in that scripture tells us when to do it?
Well, it says quickly.
Right. Now, how quickly? Dave, did you catch that point?
Well, it says while you're right there with the person.
Right, immediately.
But I couldn't tell Mr. Sowers right away. I was going to be late for class.
But was that really the reason, or were you just using the bell as an excuse because you were really afraid to tell Mr. Sowers what you'd done?
Oh, I guess you're right, Daddy. I didn't want to tell him, but now I'm even more afraid.
Oh, you poor kid.
Admitting your mistake is going to take courage, all right, but just exactly what are you afraid of? Do you think Mr. Sowers will hit you?
Oh, no, he wouldn't do that. But he can get awfully angry and really yell.
Well, I doubt if he'd even do that, Debbie. But even if he did, you have to be the kind of person the Bible describes in Hebrews 10, in verses 38 and 39. Fran, read that for us, would you?
All right, Joe. "But my righteous one will live by reason of faith, and if he shrinks back, my soul has no pleasure in him." Now, we aren't the sort that shrink back to destruction, but the sort that have faith to the preserving alive of the soul.
Now, Paul was describing a Christian here, Deb, and what did he say we shouldn't do?
Well, he said we shouldn't shrink back or be cowardly.
That's right. Now, many occasions are going to arise in life where you're going to have to show courage, honey. And if you learn to be courageous now, it'll be a lot easier then.
I've been thinking, too, Deb, about Ronnie. You know, after he took so long to confess, it was quite a while before we really trusted him again. Well, if you don't tell Mr. Sowers about this yourself, and he has to find out about it on his own, he might not trust you again.
Oh, how awful.
That's right, Dave. And in a way, Debbie, as I said before, it's good that you feel this way.
Good, but Daddy, I feel miserable.
I know you do right now, honey, but the good thing about making mistakes is that we profit by them. Now, what do you suppose you'll do next time you get into a situation like this?
Next time? Oh, I'm still worried about this one.
Well, that isn't what I mean. I mean, next time you're in a position where you might break something.
Well, for one thing, I'll sure be a lot more careful. I'd hate to go through this again.
Well, that's the point I'm making. In order for you to benefit from this, you're going to have to suffer the consequences of what you did. Now, you just said you'd hate to go through this again. Now, what is it you don't want to go through? Breaking the deer or apologizing to Mr. Sowers?
Well, I didn't mean to break the deer, but I can see your point. Admitting it is what's so hard. So, really, Daddy, then you're saying that if I don't do the right thing and apologize to Mr. Sowers, I'm wasting the whole experience and I won't learn anything from it.
Well, do you think that's true?
Yes, I guess you're right. I'm just going to have to tell Mr. Sowers tomorrow.
See him the first thing in the morning, dear, before school starts. Don't put it off at all.
Okay, but what can I say?
Well, just tell him what you told us, and that you're very sorry.
Okay.
Hey, Deb, I got an idea. Well, that deer is made of wood, isn't it?
Yes, why?
Well, Dad, I'll bet you and I could fix it with a little glue in our workshop downstairs.
Oh, really? Could you?
Sure. Ask Mr. Sowers if you can bring the pieces home. We'll make it look good as new.
Oh, thank you.
And, Deb, I'll walk you to school tomorrow, and you can pretend I'm Mr. Sowers and practice your speech on me.
Oh, thank you, Dave.
Well, now get to bed, baby. You'll feel better tomorrow.
Okay.
Well, here we are, Deb. Now, let's see. If I remember, that's Mr. Sowers' office right over there, isn't it?
Yes, but, oh, Dave,
Now, Debbie, I'm going to stand right here until I see you knock and go in, and then I'll be able to pick up the pieces when you come out.
Oh, thanks, Dave, for that encouragement.
No, I'm just kidding. No, go on.
Come in.
Mr. Sowers?
Yes, who's there?
I'm Debbie Summers, Mr. Sowers.
Oh, yes, I've been meaning to talk to you, young lady.
Really? Well, there's something I have to tell you, sir.
Well, what is it? Speak up.
Yesterday I broke the little deer on your model. I didn't mean to do it, honest. It just slipped out of my hand, and then the bell rang, and I was afraid to tell you. And I'm so sorry. But my dad said he'd be glad to fix it if you'll just let me take it home. It'll look just like new, and...
So you're the one who broke the deer. Thank you for telling me, Debbie. I'm sure it was an accident. It's right here on my desk. Shall we wrap it up so you can take it home?
Oh, yes, Mr. Sowers. That'd be fine.
There. Now there's something I'd like to talk to you about. There's a new student in your English class, Joan Hudson.
Oh, yes, sir. I know her.
Well, her mother came to see me the other day. Seems, with a new school and all, Joan is a little behind your class in English, and she's quite upset about it. We decided if one of the students could help her after school for a few days, she'd get caught up. So I talked to your teacher, and she recommended you, Debbie. Think you could handle the job?
Oh, yes, Mr. Sowers. I'd like to.
Fine. Why don't you and Joan come to my office after school today, and we'll go over the material.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Sowers. I'll see you then.
Oh, Debbie.
Yes, sir?
About the deer. Thank you for telling me. You're a courageous little girl. Now run along.
Where's Debbie, Fran? Is she home yet?
She should be any minute. She telephoned at noon and said she'd be a little late and she'd explain when she got home. Oh, I hope everything went all right with Mr. Sowers.
Oh, so do I. I thought about her all morning.
Say, here she comes now. Does that mean we can eat?
Yes, it does, Dave. Better wash up.
Mom, Dad, wait till you hear what happened. Oh, I had the most wonderful day at school. You were right about Mr. Sowers.
In days of upward spiraling crime rates such as ours, the adage, honesty is the best policy, seems to be becoming more and more out of date. However, there is no denying that it is the policy which requires more courage and the one that gets God's approval.
The program, All Scripture is Beneficial, is produced by the Watchtower Society and presented by Jehovah's Witnesses.